Hello dear developers and programmers, I hope you're doing great. You're watching episode 5 of the tutorial on sending form data from your website to Telegram. In the previous episode, I taught you how to create and deploy Cloudflare Workers, showed you how to set environment variables, and also how to work with Wrangler CLI. And in this episode, we're going to turn the test worker we built into a real worker that acts as our server to connect with the Telegram API and deliver messages from our website form to their destination. This is the worker we initially built just for testing, which simply returned an HTML page. And these are the environment variables we securely set. Now it's time to write our worker code and start using these variables inside it. And here's the form we've been working on for several episodes. Alright, to begin, I'll first prepare the form to connect with the worker. I'll comment out this part of the code because it needs to be split into two sections. One part will remain here, and the rest will move to the backend, i.e., our worker. Some parts of the code also need modification. So I'm editing what happens when the submit button is clicked on the form. First, I define the worker's link as a variable. In this line of code, I make a post fetch request to the worker, which contains all the form data along with the image. I parse the response into JSON format and store it in a variable called result. I check the response status, and if it fails, I throw an error with a proper message. And that's it, the whole front-end code is this simple. Without storing sensitive info like bot token or chat ID, we just send form data to our server, which is the worker. Now it's time to code the worker file and define its logic. I remove the test code. Alright, first I set up an event listener for incoming requests and forward each request to a function called handleRequest. I define an async function named handleRequest to process the incoming request. I create an object for CORS settings to allow cross-origin requests from a specific origin and method. Note that I'm assuming my site is running on localhost, but you should write your actual site URL here. I want the worker to only accept requests from this site. I check options requests for preflight and return a response with CORS headers if necessary. I validate the request origin, and if it doesn't match the allowed origin, I return a 403 forbidden response with CORS headers. I create a try-catch block to handle possible runtime errors. Let's start with the process of sending text data. I extract the form data from the request and store it in the form data variable. I create a formatted text string with emojis and extracted form data values to represent a new submission. To save time, I quickly copy and paste repeated parts from my previous code versions so we don't waste time on duplicate code. I send a POST request to the Telegram API to deliver the text message in HTML format to the specified chat. The same code from the previous version works fine here. Finally, I check the Telegram API response, and if the message fails, I throw a proper error. Now it's time to send the image. In this step, I copy the same code from before and make a few changes. Okay, and that's how we send the image from our form to Telegram. Now I return a JSON response with success status, along with content type and CORS headers, back to the client. In the catch block, I return the error as JSON with status code 500, and CORS headers to the client. Alright, I think the worker code is ready. Let's update the worker. By running the deploy command with Wrangler, I update my worker. Perfect, the worker updated successfully. Yes, exactly as expected, the worker returns a 403 error. So far, we've updated both the form code and the worker code. Now it's time for the final form test. Oops, an unexpected error. I suspect I wrote something wrong in the code, or something similar. Let's check what's going on. Yes, I mistakenly used quotation marks instead of backticks in my API link. Also, this T character should be uppercase. Okay, I don't think there's any more issue. I update the worker again. Well, now let's test the form again. Excellent, the message along with the image was successfully submitted and delivered. Here's an example of the text message. Alright, with this structure, the bot token and chat ID should no longer be visible in the Network tab of DevTools. At the beginning of episode 4, I showed you how these two variables were exposed in the Network tab since we hadn't used a worker yet. They were both stored on the frontend. Now, with this worker-based structure, let's test again in the Network tab. And yes, there's no trace of bot token or chat ID. We're only sending the form data, texts and images, to our worker, and the worker handles sending them to Telegram. The worker acts both as a proxy and as a way to keep bot token and chat ID hidden and secure. As you know, these two variables are not stored in the worker's backend code either. They're saved only in the Cloudflare dashboard, and even there, their values are hidden. I hope you enjoyed watching episode 5. I'll end the video here. In the next episode, I'll teach you how to deploy Cloudflare pages so we can run the entire project, the front-end and back-end of our Telegram data sending app, fully on Cloudflare. If you found this tutorial useful, please support me with a like, subscribe, comment, and share. Hit the bell icon to get notified as soon as new episodes drop. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful.